So coming up in today's episode, we've got some wheel refurbishment. I'm also going to be removing the cloudiness from these headlights and restoring them. Also, the brake calipers are going to get a nice coat of paint as well. And we're also going to be removing some of the scrapes and scratches around the bodywork of the car as well. Hi and welcome back to the channel, and today is going to be something a little bit different. It's going to be a two-parter. Today we're going to be concentrating on the outside of this car. So today we're going to be working on this little 2008 1.4 diesel Ford Fiesta. It's covered about 76,000 miles and it was part exchanged into a local garage. So there's a number of areas we're going to be working on today on this car. As we can see, the alloy wheels are really badly pitted and scored and damaged. These headlights have been weathered through the sun over the years and have sort of really faded quite badly, so we're going to try and restore those as well. The engine bay is a bit grubby as well. It's had quite a bit of mechanical work done to this recently, so it's an area that we're going to want to try and clean up and make presentable again. So with that mentioned, it's a good place to start. So what I'm going to be doing here is spraying the entire engine bay with all-purpose cleaner, or as APC as we abbreviate it to, and then I'm going to agitate that with a little interior brush which I use specifically for doing engine bays, just to loosen off all the dirt and the grime and sort of grubbiness in the engine bay. You'll notice I've wrapped an orange microfiber on the right hand side of the engine bay here. It just covers up the car's ECU, which is the main brain for the electronics, and also you won't see it initially, but I've tucked one over the alternator just at the lower part on the left hand side of the engine bay as well. With the jet wash, the power's been turned down quite a lot. It looks a lot more dramatic than it actually is. And all I'm really doing with it is just using the water pressure just to drive out all the dirt and the APC which has been left on the engine bay. So it's, if you like, the chemicals done the hard work at shifting all the dirt. This is just literally removing what's been left over. And while the engine's soaking wet, I'm going to dress it with auto glue and vinyl rubber dressing. I literally just spray it all over the engine bay, and when this dries, it'll leave it all looking really nice and sheen and a natural finish. So with the car now up in the air, we can look to remove the wheels. So I'm going to use a little screwdriver here just to carefully prise the centre cap off, and then I'm going to use the impact gun to remove the wheel nuts and remove the alloy wheel. So with all four wheels now off the car, we can look to refurbishing them. So originally these wheels would have been diamond cut. So what that means is that originally the whole tyre wheel, or at least the front part of it, was painted silver, and then they used a mechanical lathe, or usually electronic these days, and it skimmed a very sort of fine layer of metal off where this star shaped is on the front, and then they would lacquer over the top of that, and that's what gives it this really shiny metallic look at the end of it. The only downside to that is it's not very weather resistant, so if you get a very slight stone chip in the lacquer finish and you get a bit of water and rock salt from the road in there or debris, it soon corrodes and starts to sort of spider out and look awful, and then the lacquer fails and starts coming off. So initially here I'm using about a 120 grit sandpaper just to remove the dead lacquer and skim off any of the corroded metal so we get a nice clean surface. And then what I'm going to do is go down to something like a 240 or a 320 sand grit disc, and that's just going to remove any of the harsher sandy marks and prep it ready for taking primer, and then obviously then the base coat and then the lacquer. So after a bit of dramatic slow-mo footage, I'm then going to swap to a Scotch-Brite pad to go in between the spokes and the smaller areas that I can't get the sanding machine into. And primarily what this is doing is just keying up the surface so that when we do spray the primer on, it's got something to bite into and actually stick to, because if it was a shiny surface it'd be a very weak bond and it could risk sort of later on, if you jet washed it or something, flaking off. And as we can see here, I'm just masking up the wheel, obviously because we don't want any silver paint all over that. And then what I'm going to use, a little bit of a hack I've used for years, I'm going to get a little bit of hose pipe that I've cut before, and it just literally fits perfectly over the tyre valve and protects that getting any paint on it as well. So the first thing we're going to do is apply an etch primer. That's going to enable the base coat, which is going to be silver, and also the lacquer, the ability to stick to the wheel. If we didn't do this and we just applied those straight onto the bare metal, there's a very, very good chance that in future it will fail quite quickly and it will start sort of flaking off or won't bond at all. So it's important we get that laid down first before we do anything else. And with that done, we can now apply the base coat, which is going to be silver. It's very similar to the colour which was originally on the car. I had Instagram people about possibly painting these gunmetal grey, but the only problem was when I actually finally looked at the centre cap, it's silver in the middle, which you'll see later on in the video, and it would have looked really stupid with a grey wheel and then a chrome ring and then a silver centre cap. So I thought, no, we'll just stick to the original colour, and it does turn out really well at the end of it. And for the final part, we're now going to apply the lacquer. This is what makes everything look shiny. What we do here is we lay down a first tack coat. We'll allow that just to dry off a little bit. And this is obviously accelerated time here on the camera. And then what we'll do is I'll carefully blow in between the spokes to get good coverage on there. And then finally in the footage, I'll really throw a thick layer over the end to give it that really nice glossy shiny finish that we all like to look at the end. So with the wheels in a separate room drying off, I can now look to paint the calipers on the car. One thing I'm going to point to here is the discs are really worn out, they're very scored and pitted, and they've got a lip, and so are the pads, they're very, very low. So when I'm going to paint this, usually you'd mask up the back of the pad that I'm showing here, but in this instance I'm not going to have to worry about that because they're going to be replaced very, very shortly. So first off, I'm going to use a wire brush just to remove the larger debris. Then I'm going to swap down to a 240 sanding disc, and then finally I'll switch down to one of those little scotch pads I used earlier in between the spokes of the wheels, because they're quite good at getting into like the little more intricate parts around the caliper. So once this is done, I'm going to use a brake and clutch cleaner, which is a solvent degreaser, and that's going to rapidly clean off all the grease and oils which may be on there, which may affect the paint bonding to it correctly. And I'll just use an airline as well just to blow it off and dry it all and make sure all the dust and everything's out of that area. With that done, I can look to mask things up. So I'm going to mask up the flexi brake line. I'm also going to do the bleed nipple. And then lastly, I'm going to put a bit of masking tape in the centre here where the piston comes in and out and the rubber boots there. As I said, ordinarily you may mask up the back of the pad as well, but as I said, this car's going straight from here to workshop to have some new disc and pads fitted, so there's no need. And a good little tip if you're in the trade, all I'm using here is a seat cover, ripped in two basically, and it stretches really well around the disc and the brake area, and because we're using a spray can, not a high pressure airline, it's good enough to cover up any overspray going around in the local area. Regarding what paint to use, there's so many different ones on the market. As long as it's a high temperature paint and it's designed for obviously to go on metal, you should be absolutely fine. But they do sell dedicated spray cans for caliper paint, and some of them have rust inhibitors and things in them, so you can almost use it as one hit wonder. So rather than having to put primer on, you can just spray one coat on, it does everything for you. So the brakes all done, we can now look to do something with these awful headlights. So as we can see here, I've just masked up the general area on the bodywork because I don't want to obviously accidentally sand a bit of that. And I don't tend to go too aggressive with this, so I'm using initially a 2000 grit sandpaper, then I'll go down to 3000 afterwards to remove any of the scratches the 2000 might have put in, and then what we'll do from there is machine polish it afterwards to get the nice finish back on it. The reason why these plastic headlights go this way is basically there's a UV coating on the top of the lens, and just over years it sort of gets worn out by the sun or through washing or detergents or something maybe somebody's put on them, or some of them are just naturally better protected than others if I'm honest, and basically that's failed, and then what's happened is the plastic started to deteriorate. So all we're really doing here is removing a top layer of the plastic just to sort of remove that dead surface. It's almost like exfoliating skin really, and then from there we can then obviously buff that back up as we can see here on the screen, and that's going to restore that nice sort of clear lens that we wanted. So just out of a little bit of curiosity really, I thought I'd do an experiment. So on the first headlight we're going to see me using this little Rupes Hybrid Nano Mini Polisher. It's slightly beneficial on this particular headlight because it's got this little strange hump at the top where the indicator lens is, so it was quite good for getting around there. But the answer is you can use any polisher on them really. As we're going to see on the second headlight, it's a lot more accelerated time, but I've used a full side polisher on that to buff the headlight. Both come up really well. If you've got either or option, they're both going to work really well on it. So I've used the same process on both headlights. We've gone from 2000 grit sanding paper down to 3000, and then finally I've used Kosh Chemie H9 compound with a flex cutting pad. The H9 compound's designed to remove down to 1500 sanding grit marks, so this at 3000 is more than capable of removing those. And as we can see here, it's doing a pretty quick job of taking the last bit of haze out and restoring nice clarity to these headlights. Some areas may need to be done 2 or 3 times just to remove all the final marks out there. I'm pretty fussy as well, I did want these to look really good. So yeah, you'll see me go over the same area maybe a couple of times. Then as we can see, if we buffer off here, it's giving it a really nice clear vision on those headlights again. So when you're going down the road, they're actually going to be effective and you can see where you're going. So now I'm going to remove the tar. Super simple. I'm just going to spray some tar and glue remover down the side of the car and lower parts of the bumpers. Leave this on for about 2 or 3 minutes to work its magic and loosen it off. And then I'm going to use an older microfiber just to scrub that off and remove it all. With that section of decontamination, we can look to using a clay bar on the car. So what this is going to do is remove things like fallout, overspray, which I get a lot of from cars which have been to the body shop, and other bonding contaminants off the surface of the paintwork. And that's going to leave that super smooth, ready for us to machine polish. So we can see here I'm pointing to the front wing of the bumper, and there's noticeably quite a bit of a colour difference. And the reason this is because it's had a second-hand bumper fitted and painted to it. So what's happened is this little car's been saved from the scrap heap. It's come as a part exchange into a local garage I deal with, and the front bumper was really badly damaged and it had 2 weeping injectors, so it wasn't running quite right. And because of the age and sort of the price of the vehicle, it's only worth about £1,700, so potentially $2,000. The owner of the car had to make sure the whole thing was viable to fix, so it was either repair it and try and resell it, or do we just sell it off on eBay, perhaps as spares and repairs. So he's chosen to get a second-hand bumper, get that fitted. He's also brought the car to me prior to that as well, just to make sure he knew what the costs were involved, what we could do with the alloy wheels, how much it was going to cost to have things like the headlights done, and the inside, as you'll see in part 2, is absolutely disgusting. So he wanted a clear idea about how much everything was going to cost prior to sort of going down the route of trying to repair it and make it saleable again. I think one of the things that really saved this car is the fact that obviously we've all been in lockdown and there's a real shortage of second-hand cars at the moment, especially the cheaper end of the market. So this car's value is probably maybe £500 more than it usually would be. And that's what's made this whole thing viable to do. Plus the fact it's only done about 72,000 miles, so it's quite low mileage for its year, and being a little diesel as well, it was low tax bracket. So it's got a lot of things going for it, and it's reasonably high spec as well. It's got alloy wheels, air conditioning, etc. So all in all, these number of factors involved made the car a worthwhile project to get it back on the road. So with all the machine polishing done, I'm going to use Colonite as the last stage product to protect the paintwork, mainly because it's cheap and it's very, very durable, so it should last up to 3 months. So if this car was sat on a little forecourt somewhere for a while before it found a new home, it's just going to give it that nice protection and make it look shiny for longer. There isn't a ton of black plastic on this exterior of this vehicle, so things like this lower skirt and around the mirror housing as well, which has got a little bit of black, I've just used Car Pro Pearl, and that's mixed up 50-50 with water. So it's always the little things that make a difference. So by going around here with a little touch-up stick and doing the obvious stone chips and door edges and things like that, which get scuffs on them, it just takes your eye off it. It's never going to be perfect, but when you park the car up and look from a distance, it looks really, really good. So recently I've switched back to using an old glass cleaner that I used a long time ago by Autoglim, and I forgot how good it was. And I changed a long time ago, and I don't know why. Maybe something was cheaper at the time, whatever. And I've gone through various different products, and I've just gone back to using this in the last sort of month, and it's really good. I mean, like, really good. And now we're on to one of the final things, which is the reason why we had to paint the wheels silver. So this is a brand new cinder cap because the car was missing one, and as we can see, it's got like a chrome outer edge, and it's got the painted silver in the middle. As we see this older one here, it looks quite weathered. So what we're going to do here is we can use the miniature polisher with some compound, and that's just going to remove some of the scuffs and marks off these older centre caps and bring back that shine again and make them, well, as near as we can get it to the new one. And as we are about to see, as I buff off the compound residue, it's amazing what you can do with a bit of time and effort. Okay, they're not going to look exactly like the new one, but they're not bad. They're pretty good. So we're about to see here a really important thing that a lot of people don't know. On the back of this cap here, it's got an image of the tyre valve, and it gives you an idea of where this centre cap should sit. It's also got this little notched area that you have to line up with the alloy wheel for it to fit properly. A lot of people don't know this, or they don't really look at it, and they just try and slam it on the middle, and it always sits a bit proud and looks a bit weird. They are a tight fit, as you can see, but if you locate them in the right little notch, they go on perfectly. So we've got a lack of sunshine. It's Britain, it happens. But the car looks really nice outside and looks a lot different than it used to before. And with the aid of a bit of before and after, we can just see how much we've transformed the car's appearance. Without a doubt, the worst two things on this car was the headlights and those awful alloy wheels. As we can see, they looked so tired before. And just with a bit of time and effort and some resources, it's really made that car look so much different now. And with the aid of the polishing as well, any of the little black marks on the bodywork have been buffed out. It's got a few little trolley dents there, but nothing too bad. It's got a nice shine on it and it looks really, really presentable again. And coming up in the second part of this little mini series, people are in for a real treat. A lot of times I get in the comments, why don't you take the seats out? You'll be pleased to know that in the next episode we're definitely doing that. They were, as we can see, in such a state, and the inside was disgusting. So it gets a very, very thorough clean inside. Lots of dirty extraction videos. I'll give you a little bit of a taster here of the seat literally changing colour. So well worth the watch. If you haven't subscribed, maybe think about it. I do trade cars permanently, so you get lots of different varied content and lots of different things to look at as well.